When I first called my dad open to what would be our final reunion, I asked him to bring me coffee. Living in Mexico City, a place that truly clears my head and creativity, meant finding a coffee that was as strong as its sun was impossible. Ciudad de Mexico is pretty expensive and bougie, like me. Yet we differ in what we deem a strong coffee versus one that will make you say, damn, that is acidic. I asked my dad to bring me coffee out of desperation, and also a real questioning of whether this time he would actually give it to me. I'll save my daddy issues with Salvatore Ferragamo for another blog. Yet my father was the definition of flesh and blood and the ultimate consumer, from drugs to women and men, and of course designer everything. It was strange and humiliating when he would visit me because he would take me to the mall, buy thousands of dollars worth of stuff for all his wives, kids, grandkids, and male lovers, but berate me that I deserved nothing, that I was too spoiled, that I just wasn't worthy. The sad part was that that's all he ever wanted to do with me. Shame me. Take me to a mall, watch him get everything, and shame me. And then drive me back home to my mother, who said, well, at least you got to hang out with him. And the coffee ask was a bigger deal than what maybe he even understood, because it either meant he was trying to actually be good to me, or would lead me to another verbal emotional assault like prior times where he somehow found himself in a parking lot yelling at me and cursing at me all different types of names while he stuffed away his Salvatore Ferragamo. God, he was gay. Anyway, when I saw my father, he looked and energetically felt exactly the same. Overgrown pinky nail from when his years of doing coke that probably were still continuous, with a gold ring to commemorate the lavishness and expensiveness of, well, cocaine. Wads of money hanging from his pants to commemorate the taxes he evaded, and a flashy gold watch to make sure all was done in time, and at the very least he knew when to run away from the mobsters he had bribed. Yet this was a man that had told his family how much he missed me, even though he only wrote love letters to my mom, never mentioning me beyond one instance where he said, if she wants me to eat at dinner with her, I'll take her just to get back with you. For a girl in her 20s with a series of body issues, that stemmed from him calling me ugly and fat. Coffee was a bigger ask. It was him saying that, well, he could give me what I want with no burden of cruelty. My father smiled at me after 10 years of not seeing each other. I was nervous and excited because what if he was a better human being? What if he did miss me? And unlike our last interaction where he said he did not love me, time had shown him I was worth loving. While I never felt it was my fault that my dad did not love me, I did feel it was my job to make him do so. And the result was a relationship that replicated in so many ways through lovers, friends, and bosses, the one who serves and hopes to receive. Although my father claimed to love me, his actions spoke obviously differently, and I could not always pinpoint why. That's when he smiled at me and handed me over an open coffee bag wrapped in plastic. I realized why I never matched his words with actions. He was just plain old disrespectful. He had taken a 7-hour flight with leftover coffee grinds from his pantry and looked at me like I was a diamond ring for his long-lost daughter. The worst part is that for a day I acted like it was important, an olive branch, going back to that little girl that was trained by both her parents to justify her father's mediocrity and idiocy as, well, paternal. Here I was carrying an open bag of used coffee throughout the hotel and an expensive dinner of which he ate, and not realizing that this was a sign of the weekend, of how irredeemable he was as a human being. You cannot be the most materialistic person defining how you love others by the gifts you give them, and then give your daughter a used coffee. The worst part of my father's visit is he continued to always tell me how he treated everybody better than me, as if it was supposed to impress me. Once again, asking him how he was became a laundry list of the things he was buying himself and his loved ones. Sure, to someone it may sound like it was just coffee and the act of being nice, but I say to those some, you're an asshole. And you will always be one. All right, let's heal. Let's discuss. Um, for my father, love was. You always knew who my father didn't like because he humiliated them. And I think a lot of the forced relationship I had with my father was brought on by my mother. My mother was very, very obsessed that I had a relationship with my dad. And she explained it to me as, obviously I don't want you to have a dad. I had a horrible father too. It's just something we had to accept. But I think the difference between my father and my grandfather, whom had a lot in common, right? Patterns are generational. My dad was charismatic. He was the brokest man to be rich. And my grandfather could be very similar. He was rich, he was charismatic, and similar to my dad, had a bunch of abandoned children, and he did not care if his kids were starving or homeless. I think the difference between my dad and my grandfather was that my father wanted his kids homeless. Like, my father wanted people to suffer. He plotted against his wives, against his male lovers, and whatever imagined enemy he had, because my father was somebody that, similar to my grandfather, thought they were good human beings despite doing cruel acts. And he kind of thought accusing him or kind of saying back to him the horrible things he was doing was the same as him doing. Like, it's kind of like Ted Bundy did not like the title serial killer, but he was one. And for some people, revealing to them how evil they are is an act of vengeance. It's an act against them. It's an act of injustice. It's an act of immorality. And my father was horrible at being confronted with his sins because he really just didn't care. Like, he did not mind destroying people. He enjoyed it. And I think that's what my mother missed in terms of not understanding how much my father creeped me out, how much I wanted him out of my life, because my mother and I had a tricky relationship. It was either wonderful or horrible. It was either funny and fun or devastating and crying. And it was hard to manage. I felt like I had only 25% love. And in terms of parents, 100% from my grandmother, at least a solid 75, and 25% from my parents, because my father completely hated me, so that's 50, and my mother was half and half and didn't necessarily see it. And I felt very overwhelmed. I felt emotionally and mentally like I was just succeeding because I am ambitious, but I really didn't have the greatest support system, because at school, what was the blessing was that I was really smart, and that for the most part, teachers liked me. And that is having a few voices in your corner tell you that you're exceptional when you're coming from a very critical household is like water in a desert. And my mother was very, very critical and kind of saw humiliation as having to learn lessons. So she didn't always pick up when she was being genuinely bad and shameful, because she thought you have to learn. But the minute you plot against your child, that's cruel, that's mean, that's malice. And my father was so open about it. But I think he understood there was a lot of childhood wounds my mother had, and he kind of just wedged into them. Like, my mother could not take criticism despite giving it. My mother could not fathom being another person in her family that somehow ended up with a broken family, that somehow ended up with a deadbeat husband. Like, that was her cousins that did that, not her. And I think it's because everybody thinks they're changing the game. Everybody is so determined to change the game. And yet, you wind up in the same losing team as, say, your mother, as, say, your grandmother, as, say, your father, as, say, your uncle. And it's shocking because you swore you did things differently. And I think the irony is, when I asked my father for the open coffee, I thought I was doing things differently. I thought that emotionally I was prepared for whatever came. If he didn't bring it, if he brought it, I really did not expect for him to put an open used coffee bag in a plastic, like a Ziploc, and give it to me. That was shocking because my father, in being a closeted gay man, was very, very, very designer obsessed. Loved designer, loved leather, loved golden rings, like flashy, flashy, flashy. One of those old 1980s gays. And it's almost like you look at somebody's personality and you look how they treat you, and it's like you're not matching. Because somebody who loves lavish obviously loves lavish gifts. If somebody who loves to show off shows off through their gifts. And a lot of my childhood was mall hopping with my father when he came around to buy all these gifts for what I now know was multiple families and multiple lovers. And when he got that open coffee and handed it to me, and mind you, I hadn't seen him in a decade, there was just something so like, oh God, this is going to go bad. This is going to go really, really bad. And it's something that, and you could hear it in the prior episode, The New Epstein. I never realized that a lot of the ways I survived my relationship with my father was by acting dumb and being overly grateful for, him filing his cocaine nail in front of me. Like just acting mesmerized to survive this human being that absolutely every single person that ever met him wanted to forget him. My father betrayed every single human being that loved him. And to die that way, to die completely a waste of love, is to die a complete waste of life. And he never redeemed. He never became a human being. He really did live his life off of a justified emptiness. He was that open coffee bag in a Ziploc, like just moving through life so used and not realizing it was him using everyone. And I thought it was extremely disrespectful because this was a man who gained his wealth by tax evasion, fraud, bribing his own clients. He could buy a coffee bag. And it's a very weird thing. My mother, the weeks before, I had found out that my father went through quite a few bits of cancer, even had a catheter. And it's weird to know when a parent that was abusive to you is dying or potentially dying, because we are so trained to believe that our parent is our parent even when they're not parental. And I could say my mother was a mom. I couldn't say my father was a father. And if anything, I could say he was an enemy. So when I found out that he was sick and he was near death, I thought, what do I need a final goodbye? Do I need closure? And that's another thing that society trains us to believe. You can't just end things. You've got to wrap it up. And I thought, it's been a decade. Maybe he grew up. No, he didn't. And there was something about him handing me that coffee and him counting money and just looking like an expensive slob, because my father loved high brands, but it's kind of like Jeff Bezos and the Met Gala. Like these men, for however expensive they are and they buy, they make things look cheap. Like the Met Gala, this was the most expensive one, and I thought it was a Whole Foods or something. Like it looked about as expensive as Whole Foods. It really did. Like it was not kicking it like everyone thought. And we had spent the day, that was our first day, walking around, me pouring my soul, him nodding, not apologizing. And all I kept on doing was looking on the side to that open coffee bag that I was carrying and just thinking, what did I just do? What did I really need from this? And in the end, what I realized is I needed my mother to understand my choices. I didn't isolate and kick my father out because I'm sensitive. I did it because he was evil. And she would learn that soon enough with some of the upcoming things he did. So check out deandrewbutherall.com for Daddy Recovery episodes and join the Substack. And of course, follow me on all social media platforms and Hadeen on all music platforms. Yeah, yeah.